Well, hello everyone, and welcome to UnCivil Law. As always, hope you're having a great day. And I am here with a special guest. It is Louis Rossman, who is an independent repair technician working out of the great city of New York City. He works a lot on Apple products, and he has many, many thoughts on right to repair. And as I've just learning in the pre-interview, many thoughts on COVID. So I thought we could start there and share our thoughts on all that stuff. So with me now is the great Louis Rossman. Yay!
Hey, thank you for having me on. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And I thought that it would be interesting to discuss right to repair from a lot of different perspectives because my principal job is patent law. And so right to repair is somewhat in tension with that. And be interesting to discuss that. But before that, I thought we could discuss COVID because, as I mentioned in our little pre-interview, I really enjoyed your recent video where you're riding your bike down the streets of Manhattan and you're filming these outdoor, indoor, outdoor, indoor. I don't even know what the juxtaposition is. They look suspiciously indoor, but they're set up on the sidewalk. So that makes them outdoor, but
Yeah, so the first
indoor.
thing I have to do is I have to correct you on your opening. So you said I come from the great city of New York. And clearly, as someone who's watched that video of what people in New York need to do to stay in business because of our dumbass politicians, you know you made a mistake with your description. So yeah, we have a system where you were allowed to have indoor dining at 25%. Then they said no, you can only have outdoor dining. So but it's 19 degrees outside. Lots of customers don't want to eat when it's 19 or 25 degrees outside. It's kind of a cold. So they built had a wall because they didn't want the dust from the garbage truck or anything going into your food. And then they built a ceiling, and then they built a door, and then they put a little heater inside of it so that now you have it's outdoor dining, but you're inside while you're outside. But that scares away the COVID.
Yeah, no, and then on your biking, I the first one you found was more of a tent style. There was like plastic tenting, and then that was the first one you commented on with this outdoor indoor dining, and then you were a little bit later driving down the street, and your reaction was I couldn't even. I interpret it as I can't even believe what I'm seeing because I'm seeing real walls with real ceilings, and you said this cheap Home Depot door, the cheapest door you can buy. You said you bought many of them, so you know exactly what door it is.
I
And it's
recognize
got
that
got
door. Yeah.
walls and ceiling, and it's got glass to see through, and looks suspiciously indoor, but on the sidewalk, so it doesn't count as indoor somehow.
Yeah. I remember passing this place, and I remember seeing this door. It was a very familiar door because when I was building my first store, I was very close to going bankrupt as I was finishing up the move, and I didn't have any money to put a door on the front of the store. The door that was there was literally falling apart. So I went to Home Depot and bought this piece of crap for I think $35 or $38, and that was some piece of shit side of the house patio door that you could just kick through and put a hole in immediately.
Yeah.
And I noticed that that was the exact same door that was being used in the side of this thing, and I went up to it, and there's a door, there's walls, there's ceiling, there's windows. I that's probably more sealed than my office because there's no HVAC. There's no
Yeah,
vent.
yeah.
There's no.
Yeah, it's even worse. Yeah, because it's a completely contained space. So if
It is a
anyone in
pure
that room
COVID.
has COVID, they're all just going to be breathing the COVID because it's just going to be filled with COVID. And then if the waiter comes in, they're coming into this environment where people are just inhaling, exhaling COVID with no ventilation. So it's like the worst possible situation it could be in. Whose genius idea was this?
This was a mixture of De Blasio and Cuomo. And
Yeah,
here's the thing: an inspector should, if they're really obeying the law, an inspector would walk by and just say no and just say get out of here. But the inspector realizes I don't have a solution for you. So I'm going to tell you what you're doing is wrong. But if in order for you to do the right thing to do is to pay your $20,000 or $40,000 of rent on this restaurant space while not being able to open your doors. So the inspector, I'm guessing here, this is pure speculation, is just saying, I'm not going to enforce this because this just seems ridiculous and unjust. And that's why I think you have all this stuff going on here. Because it's one thing to enforce a law. If you see someone just like throwing their cigarette off into the middle of the street, okay, that's a bad example because New York is already literally junk. If you see people fighting in the street, you could say, okay, you're not supposed to be doing that. The cop will say stop and break it up. But if you have someone who's trying the best they can to be able to feed themselves and their family and pay their mortgage and pay their rent, you're not going to walk up to them and say, excuse me, sir, are you trying to pay your rent? I'm sorry, stop that. So they're just not, they're not addressing it. So you have all these little indoor outdoor structures all over the city. Some of them in the beginning, they were put together in good faith. So you would have the sidewalk here, they'd have everything set up, and they would just put up a little wall just over here so that if someone drives by fast, you don't get a bunch of dust all over the food, which made sense. And then they decided, okay, well, listen, it's raining. Who's going to come in if it's raining? So let's just put a little roof. And then it got cold out. So, okay, we're going to close this off. And then it started snowing. So, okay, we'll put another wall over here. And then we're going to put a heater. But great, now I got a heater, but now the heat is coming out. So it started off as just like a little wall. And then it just kind of grew
Yeah.
until it became this ridiculous shit that we have now.
What I don't understand is why the inspectors, if they're letting that slide, why aren't they just letting the businesses just open their restaurants anyway? Because it would be less bad. It's like, hey, we've got real permit walls that were built with HVAC and everything. And
did you ever wear headphones in class as a kid because you found the teacher boring?
Yeah.
So you would have the kids that would have the headphones on that were large, like your headphones, and they would be doing this, like banging their head to the music. Then you had kids that would have the big headphones on, but they would be taking notes. Then you had the kids that would have earbuds. Then you'd have the kid like me that would have the earbuds. The wire would be going up his shirt so you couldn't see it over here, and he'd be like this. And there's different levels of disobeying the rules. Now, the kid that had his headphones on like this, he always got in trouble. The kid that you knew had headphones on, but it wasn't really obvious, wouldn't get in as much trouble. And then there'd be me, where I knew at some point my teacher knew, but he would just never comment because it looked like I cared enough about, I respected your rule enough to at least pretend that I'm following it. And since I'm showing you respect, you're going to show me the respect back of letting me break that rule. And this is the adult version of that.
Yeah, the whole thing is it just points out the comic absurdity of it. You know, it's the juxtaposition of these elements, and it's palpably absurd. Also, on another technical level, they are blocking the sidewalk, which is a right of way because they are now constructed on the sidewalk. So they're taking away. It's not like New Yorkers ever use the sidewalks because they don't walk a lot. Oh, wait, the opposite of that. So I guess maybe it's not now because of COVID, but still, it's like they're blocking
Don't even
the
get me
right of
started
way.
with the bike lane stuff, because you'll have waiters that are walking right out of the bike lane. And like, again, even if I was just pedaling my bike, I'd be going 16, maybe 17 miles an hour. You know, if you have all the delivery people with the motors that are going 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, that's a recipe for somebody to get killed.
Yeah, and who was it? Who did that famous video with the who in New York? Casey Neistat, who did the famous video in New York with baking the going in bike lanes. How people park in bike
Casey
lanes.
Neistat, that was hysterical.
Yeah, that was one of his great videos. An early one, really helped launch his career. Yeah, and we were also talking about our comparative mayors in such a situation, and how this does seem to become a bit of a red state, blue state, or a Republican Democrat thing. Because we were commenting, my mayor's Democrat, but my governor's Republican. So the mayor wants to put in these heavier restrictions. He tried in New Year's Eve to put in these heavier restrictions, and the governor just said, no, you can't do that because state law supersedes. And then you have New York, which of course is Democrat, and so they just feed off each other. And looking at that interesting juxtaposition of how that is.
Yeah, I mean, you have on one side, you have people that want to lock everybody in their house, regardless of age, regardless of your, you know, what pre-existing conditions you have, regardless of whether you're wearing masks, you know, close every business, close everything. If you even save one life, as Cuomo likes to say, typical sophistry, if we even save one life, then destruction of everything else is worth it. And on the other side, you have people that just think COVID doesn't exist, or it exists, but like, who really cares? Let's just pretend that it doesn't. And like, there's no real middle ground here. You know, it's a shitty situation, but you can't just have one. You can't pretend it doesn't exist, or you can't say it does exist, so let's just destroy everything else in the pursuit of making this one metric of COVID cases and deaths go down.
It's almost like we should have a complicated and balanced policy perspective, factoring in like all the things and trying to reach a comprehensive policy solution that looks at all the various factors instead of just one thing or the other. This is like that. It's like that. Maybe it's what the smart person would do. So I don't know. I don't know why they're not smart.
It's about pandering.
Yeah, the sophistry that you point out with if it even saves one life, it's all worth it, is really annoying because some people they repeat the line, and I'm like, how can you be repeating this line? How do you not realize that this is inherently stupid? It's like even when life's important, I'm like, okay, so if you're telling me we have one death from COVID, we should keep everything locked down, even one. locked down forever. Because I mean, if it saves one life. And how about the flu? Just normal flu. People are like, well, you can't compare it to the flu. I can, in so much as the flu also kills people. And if people get the flu, people will die. So why don't we just shut everything down forever because of the flu or the common cold?
This
It's
is
like,
the worst
no,
of the
that's not
flu,
what's
but,
happening. I'm
but
like,
I agree
God.
with you, the premise, which is, the flu. I think the flu kills somewhere between 14 and 60,000 a year. This killed
Yeah.
over 200,000 in a year. So is it considerably worse? Yes, but the terminology that gets used is what aggravates me. So, for instance, when someone says this is the equivalent of 100 9/11s. Well, when let's say 14,000 people die from the flu, do we say that was 5 9/11s? No, that language is used to get you to respond in an emotional way. It's emotionally charged language designed to get you to agree with what's coming next. It's fear-mongering language, and it aggravates me. It pisses me off. When I go to work and I'm around anybody in this store, you must wear a mask. We change the entire way that we do business and the entire way that the front of the store operates. People, a lot of stuff changed here as a result of it, because I do think COVID exists. I'm not just going to say I'm not doing that because that doesn't make sense. I'll make changes, but I'm not going to completely ignore the fact that if that reality exists, that if I close for 6 to 12 months and I have a $15,000 a week payroll and a 12 or 13,000 a month rent,
Yeah, maybe that's also a
I'm dead.
relevant factor. Maybe you would like money to feed you and your kids and your girlfriend, and maybe your staff would like money to feed their spouses and their children. And maybe if people didn't have money, they wouldn't be able to have food, and that would also hurt people's lives, and
Yeah, I
also
do.
just their happiness.
There is the age of, I'm 32. When COVID happened, I was 31, but there is also the life from the age of 34 to question mark. And I am concerned about that part of it. I'm concerned about this, but I'm also concerned about that part of it as well. And if you show concern about that part, you're evil, or you want people to die. And it's aggravating.
No, I mean, in everyday life, we normally factor this in. We have entire actuaries to help factor out these kinds of risks and figure out what risks are for insurance, if no other reasons. Like, you have to calculate the relative risks versus other rewards. It's like there's probably, I mean, you could live in a bunker and you'd be safe from a lot of things, but that what kind of life is that? So
I think
you
that
have to
this conflict
take some risk.
I think this conflict is intersecting with another conflict in society, which is this aggravation that a lot of people have, whether they're left wing or leaning or right leaning, that there are people that are incredibly greedy that will do corrupt things for money. They don't care
Sure,
if they are overworking people. They don't
sure.
care if they have screwed people to the point where they're literally burning factories down in India. They don't care about their employees whatsoever at all. They just want
Hmm.
as much money as humanly possible, and they don't care what they have to do to get the money. And there's a lot of pushback against that at this point in time. So if you push the button of, well, the people that don't want shutdowns care about money over people, it's easy to get that baggage thrown into this situation, and
Yeah.
then people start to avoid everything else that we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of evils on a lot of ends of these equations, and for people looking to exploit workers and not even caring about them, all we have to do is turn back the clock a little bit, and we can talk about New York City and some of the stuff that they were doing back in the day with sweatshops and fires that would burn down entire garment districts and stuff like that. It was really bad, in the early 20th century in New York. And so yeah, those things need to be looked at too. But it's like, why does it have to be absolutely one thing or absolutely the other thing? Why not actually look at everything and have a truly moderated and considered position? But
It's
you
the
have,
language that was used in the
yeah,
beginning. So he cornered himself when he said what he said. When he said, if this even saves one life, it is worth it. I am not putting
yeah.
the economy over people's lives. Now you're fucked, because
Now he's trying to roll that back because we saw it was yesterday or the day. I must have been yesterday. It must have been last week because it's Monday. It must have been Friday or something of last week where the mayor, no, the governor, yeah, it was Cuomo, where governor was giving his press conference, and he was trying to roll this back. He's like, oh, we need to reopen the economy. It's time to start reopening the economy because it's starting to hurt people. And I'm thinking to myself, this is what the Republicans were saying all along. But now you finally come to the conclusion we came to, a year ago, and you want to roll this back because you put yourself in such an untenable position. It's annoying.
Yeah, it's
and then
very
and then
annoying.
of course the double standards of it all. The double standards of it all are really annoying because I was pointing out to you, my mayor Steve Adler made a video on Facebook saying how everyone can't travel, and he made that video while traveling at Cabo St. Lucas with his daughter's wedding. It was important for him. Or Nancy Pelosi when she got her hair done, or the mayor of Chicago when she got her hair done. She had a whole
really
press.
needed a haircut, though. Have you seen a
She
picture
really
of her?
needed a haircut because she's on TV a lot. It's really important for her to be well dressed, and she thinks grooming is an important personal value, which is only important to her and no one else. That was the
Yeah,
message I
plebs like
got.
me have to get stuck with a do-it-yourself hahaircut. Where like, I mean, you could probably tell I cut my own hair for the last 6 months. It's horrible.
Oh
But
no, yeah. Well, I
that's
was doing it for a long time, and I finally was able to get a haircut. But yeah, I was doing the 1 inch, 1 inch on the razor or the 1 inch on the trimmers, and just giving myself basically a 1 inch buzz cut. It was working, sort of.
yeah, I can't cut my own hair for shit. I remember saying in the beginning of this that a lot of people's habits are going to change and they're not going to go back to their old way of doing
Yeah,
things. So I've been putting off buying a little $30 or $50 buzz cut set for probably 15 years. I hate having to go to the barber. I hate having to, go while they're open or rush out of work real quick so I'll make it there before they close at 8 or 9. And I hate having to wait in line and all that, and then having to go home and then shower while I'm itching on the subway because I have these little hairs all over me. So I finally got this, and I said I'm probably never going to get a haircut again and then I looked at the results of me trying to cut my own hair, and well, yeah, it's like the
yeah.
genius
Well,
bar
it
for me.
wasn't as good as when you get it done by the professionals. And the other thing that we were talking about in our little pre-interview was what this is going to do for the work environment going forward, and also what it will do for real estate prices in cities that have been built on that. Because people have been working from home for about 9 months now, 8 or 9 months, depending on when different places started to calm down. And businesses are starting to adjust to that. And a lot of these businesses have these, and in New York in particular, have these massive physical places for people to come and work at extreme expense. And these businesses have been doing this 6-9 months now, and they've got to be saying to themselves, if they weren't before, it's like, hey, wait a second, maybe I don't have to pay, $50,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 a month in rent or whatever it is, and I could, I could spend some of that money on quality of life for my employees and still be well in the black. So what makes this different, I think, than other sort of things is how far the internet has come, because it's making work from home truly, really possible because of high-speed internet. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the long term to cities like New York and other downtown clusters.
When 9/11 happened, it wasn't until a year after 9/11 that my parents were able to get a high-speed internet package at home, which was 768 down and 128 up. So when people bring up how it's different from how this is, it's going to kick back the exact same way it always did. In 2000, and all these times that happened before, the internet wasn't really as good as it is now. You didn't have as much. There weren't as many tools available online, but there also wasn't the ability to use them.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's different is that the real estate bubble has gotten to a point where it really does have to burst. It simply costs too much money to do business here. And I think what's going to change is that it's a difference between people being afraid to come back versus people not being allowed to come back. So back then, the only people that weren't going back to work were the people who were too scared to show up in the city. Right now, the only people not going back to work are all the people who are legally not allowed to. So you may have a bunch of people that are saying, I'm fine going back to work, but they're not legally able to. So now they're forced to do a work from home model. Now, a lot of companies may not want to try and come up with a work from home model because you have to redo everything, and there may not be much cost benefit in it for you. So if you already have a profitable business, why do you want to redo the way you do everything and then add all these management issues in? Managing remote workers is much more difficult than managing workers that you can see. I get all sorts of crap for this every time I mention it. It's just the truth. If I tell you, can you do this job, and you say yes, and you don't do it, if I can see you and I can hear you and I can like get an idea and I can just watch what you're doing, I can probably figure out why it is you're not doing it, or at least be able to interject and try and help you out more than if I can't see or hear you. I have no idea what you're doing. I don't know why you're not doing it. Maybe you're nervous. Maybe you're having a bad day. Maybe I didn't give you the right tool. Maybe you're just playing World of Warcraft. Like, I have no way of knowing why it is you're not doing your job. It's more difficult to manage people remotely than when you can see them. But if you're forced to do that, if the law forces you to have everybody work from home, now you're forced to come up with a remote management system. You're forced to only hire employees that you can trust to work remotely. You're forced to learn how to deal with this new environment. Well, the plus of that at the end of it is that you don't need to pay $150,000 for your office rent. You probably only need to pay $10,000 a month for your office rent. So if you already have switched this new model, why would you switch back when switching back means going back to paying a bunch of money? Like you already put in the investment
Right,
to be
right.
able to have people work from home. So why if you were forced to put in the investment to do that, then why would you go back to the old way? That would almost be as if someone were if you were forced to automate your business, if you were forced to replace all the humans with robots and forced to put up all the money, then at the end of all that saying, okay, now that you have everything set up, never mind, go back to paying the humans $30 an hour. Like, why would you do that?
Right. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think everything comes with trade-offs. And to pretend that work from home doesn't come with trade-offs, and also for that matter, working in a centralized place comes with trade-offs. Very little is free. So, you get more accessibility, you can see everybody. There's easier for to form teams just dynamically. And also just the amount of information you get from being in the real world changes versus even a teleconference. It's not the same. So I think you're right. And a lot of these companies probably didn't want to make that decision for a lot of other reasons. And now they've been forced to. So invention or necessity is the mother of invention. So now that they've been forced to create this infrastructure for this work at home environment, now that it's there, a lot of these companies will be like, well, we went through all that hardship, so now we have it. So what is the benefit now to bringing people back versus before? And I think different businesses will make different decisions. And I don't think everyone's going to be working from home forever. But to imagine that it's not going to change for a substantial number of businesses and a lot more people will be working from home indefinitely, I think is also equally foolish. So it's got to have impact on real estate and prices and how people live and everything.
There'll be more vacancies or just lower
Yeah.
prices. And knowing New York City, it's going to be lower vacancies because no one will ever lower their price here.
Yeah, well, sometimes someone's going to realize that having some money is better than having no money, right? So we'll see how that all goes. But I thought that was a really interesting discussion as well. So I think we can transition to right to repair stuff because that's a really interesting issue, and it's interesting to me from a legal perspective because it comes at tensions, and the most obvious tensions to me are if you're a company, if you're a company like Apple, for example, you're the gold standard of products. People have a lot of respect for them in the company. And one of the reasons might be because they control their infrastructure and they put together their parts a particular way to make things as good as it can be. So one of the things I think about is, well, the consumer might want the right to repair, but now they have things that look like Apple products that aren't really Apple products. And I think about how those might get sold and resold in the secondary market and how that might impact someone like Apple's brand or image because they won't have the same quality of parts that they did before. So that's one of the things I think about as a countervailing value. But why don't you just set out what you think about right to repair and where you think the limits should be, if any?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind there is kind of the argument that I think would go about for prohibition of marijuana or alcohol. I mean,
Mm,
marijuana has been illegal for a really long time. It doesn't stop people from smoking it. I mean, if you go
fair.
on eBay right now, you're going to find phones that people have fixed. Right to repair not existing doesn't mean that people are not just going to find donor boards like I do, get a collection and work on the devices. It doesn't mean that they're not going to find a schematic through some other means. It just all that's going to do is make it easier to get access to it rather than me having to go through this back alley way of doing business. You're not going to have to show up in the stairwell of a ghetto recording studio at 1 a.m. to buy your drugs. You can just go to Dwayne Reed or CVS. Same thing is true here. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because right to repair doesn't exist. I'm still employing 14 or 15 people without right to repair existing. So that whole thing where people are doing that type of work, that's going to happen regardless. And honestly, I think there's a bit of a control freak element there. When that I think that would be a bad argument for not having right to repair. There's good ones. The bad argument would be, well, people may fix things improperly, so this shouldn't exist. Because people have the right to work on their own products, and they're going to work on their own products regardless of whether they have this ability. So you might as well at least make it easier for them to. I think the best legal framework for rejecting right to repair would be the right to be an asshole. This doesn't come across well, which is why they have to pretend to care about safety and everything else. But the best argument would be, we have the right to deny you access to a schematic. We have the right to tell the company that makes the charging chip in this product, don't sell it to them. That's part of the contract. We have the right to do that. And then we have the right to tell you when you come to get it fixed, it'll be $2,000 or $3,000, which, by the way, is the cost of the new machine. The best like technical legal framework argument, I think, to reject right to repair would be the one where you say, in America, you have the right to be an asshole. You can cheat on your wife. I mean, again, it's not suggested. It's probably kind of mean. It's kind of fucked up if you agree to a monogamous relationship, but you have the right to do that. If you meet someone on the street and they look at you funny, you have the right to say, screw you. And it's not nice. It may end in a fight, but you have the right to say, screw you to someone that you don't like. Just because it's not nice doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. But the argument that right to repair is bad because people may fix their own things and it may not be as good as it was before. I mean, people have been fixing their own things from the beginning of time, and some people are going to do a really good job, some will do a medium job, and some will do a horrible job. And one of the things that I'm hoping with right to repair and this industry becoming legitimized is that it won't be only the shade tree people that get into this industry. So this industry is not going to attract the best people so long as it's an industry where there's no dignity to the job. So if there's a pathway where to do your job, the manufacturer provides you with the schematics and the diagrams and the parts and everything else, and then in this other industry, you have to go to like Venafix dot whatever and hope the schematic you're getting is actually for your board, because sometimes it's not. And then go on Skype and speak to random people in China and wire them money in the hope that they will send you chips that are what they are actually branded. You're not going to go into this industry. You're going to go into that industry. The only people who are going to wind up in this industry are the people who couldn't qualify for the better industries. And if anything, I would see right to repair as attracting more legitimate technicians who are good at their jobs in this industry that will then eventually flush the crappy ones down the toilet.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. And I do like what you were saying about the strong point, because, you as a business owner also have the right to be an asshole or not. I mean, you can run your business any way you want. You can charge any price that, the market will bear. And you can treat your employees any way that you want within the bounds of the law. And we've seen certainly examples of leaders who are more kind and more assholish and more dictatorial. So everyone has the right to kind of act and do what they want. And to the extent that you have any proprietary steps in what you do in terms of the process of how you take in things, how you process them, how you actually do the steps of your business, to the extent that you have anything proprietary or trade secret about that, I think you might be a little bit upset if someone said to you, well, you need to diagram this and you need to give it to anyone who asks, because you went through the effort of presumably some trial and failure, or at least reading other books about things to develop your methodology. And if you're successful in your methodology, that's a trade advantage for you. And if someone said to you, well, you have to give away your trade advantage, you'd be like, no, I went and developed that too. So I think Apple is kind of in the same position to some degree. They went through God knows how much research and development to be able to develop these products and be able to put them a particular way. And if you don't like Apple products, you don't have to. They have a particular methodology. And if you like it, great. If not, great. But it seems a little unfair. Like, you should have to reveal exactly what you're doing so other people can do it. It's like, we developed that work. What's it? That's not fair.
Well, I think one of the counter arguments to that, well, the first thing that I think makes sense is, if you put all this effort in to be able to provide a product, that you should not simply be forced to give all of that away. And I actually agree in some sense on that. The area where I disagree is where asking for the schematic means giving all of that away, because you've already given that away when you buy the product. So the schematic is going to tell you on this board what the values of all the components are and where they're connected to. And if I really wanted to, you could technically just sit here and make a schematic from this board. It's a pain in the ass. It would take some time, but by all means, someone that has a little bit more machinery and the software tools for it could make a schematic of what all the interconnections on this board are. And it wouldn't look as official as the Apple schematic. It wouldn't have the exact same names to everything. You'd have to guess what the names are to certain things. But you would pretty much have all the values of everything on this board and what's connected. It's not, I wouldn't call that a secret, because it's literally sold to you when you buy the machine. And as long as you're physically able to get to the board, that stuff is not a secret. Now, you may consider source code a secret, and that's not something that we're actually asking for. One of the things that's bothered me is when we'll show up at these hearings, they'll say that they're asking for source code, yet none of the bills that we have put forth have said that you need to give us your source code. I don't want source code. I think that that's going a little bit too far. There are people that disagree with me there that want everything to be open source. I prefer things be open source. The law is not, but the law is not asking for that. It's simply saying that something like access to a schematic should not be something that, if shared, would be criminalized. Now, I forget the exact name of the company, but I remember a long time ago reading about this, and perhaps someone who knows more can correct me because I could be talking out of my ass here. This was a while ago. Was that you couldn't actually have a schematic for a product and say that that was something that you could copyright or trademark and stop from being distributed. So there was this one company, and I forget the name of it, I'm hoping someone remembers, that was actually putting drawings in their schematics, like just random drawings of stuff, so that they could say that this is now not just the schematic, this is my copyrighted artwork, so you can't distribute it. And there are all sorts of funny things like that going around. But the other thing is, I also don't believe that the fundamental intention of the law, and this is a very subjective thing here, I don't think that the fundamental intention of the law when these were created were to keep people from repairing their own products. And I think if this were the idea when these laws are being made, that it would have been written differently. Because in the time that most of these laws came out, the culture of the country was completely different. You know, even the greediest companies on earth had with rich CEOs would sell you the products, and the manuals would be inside of it. The schematic would be on the back panel. It was a fundamental expectation that you have the ability to maintain the product that you purchase because you own it. And I think that the law would have been written differently at that time if they saw ahead to where we were right now.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. So yeah, I think you're definitely right that the laws weren't really necessarily written with this in mind and this situation that we currently have in mind, and trying to draw the lines that you were saying with respect to like software and hardware were interesting. And you're probably right that a person could put together a schematic of a particular board, and but of course then someone actually has to do it, and then because Apple doesn't give it away for free, it might be more trouble than it's worth. And they're just trying to make it a little bit easier make it a little bit harder for you to be able to do that because they don't particularly want to make it easy for you. So it may not necessarily be a secret in that respect, but it makes the work of actually doing it more of a pain in the ass, so people won't actually do it. And I think there's a lot to be said about some of these companies. The one that I am particularly disfavorable to is John Deere, with some of the stuff they're doing with their tractors, and how a lot of farmers will try to get equipment that doesn't have any processors because they don't want to deal with the DRM issues when their tractor breaks down because of some software that only John Deere can fix. When the cost of the thing failing is I can't harvest my crops, that is pretty consequential. So John Deere is the one I have the most animus for along these lines because it's so consequential what they're trying to do.
I spoke to someone that claims they work at John Deere for a long time that was trying to go through all the counterpoints and say, here's why they do this way, here's why they do this that way. And I understood some of the points that they made. I don't understand all of it just because I don't work on tractors. I'm not a farmer or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I primarily focus on the cultural side of it rather than the legal side of it, because when you get rid of the big overarching laws, you don't wind up with none. You just wind up with a tyranny of like thousands of little statutes. Like, so you have the big law is allow people to work on their property and don't be an asshole. But if you don't have that anymore, you don't have that enforced culturally, then you wind up with a right to repair thing, which is where we're discussing the difference between source code and a schematic. How long does the chip have to be made available for? Do we have to make the chip available, or do we have to ensure that our vendors also make that chip available? If our vendors make that chip available, are they now forced to go from being wholesalers to being retailers? Like, you have to spell all this stuff out. And that's a difficult thing to do and a royal pain in the ass. So what I'm focusing on more than the legal side is the cultural side. I want people to actually understand that this is a problem, understand where it's happening, what companies are doing it, or at least discuss it when it's occurring with the stuff that I work on, so that when they or their friends or their kids or their parents or whatever have board positions at these companies or work at these companies or engineer products at them, they realize, wait a second, when you wanted me to change the address that this chip speaks to that chip on, is this why you wanted me to do it? Because if that's the case, I'm not doing it. I want them to. I want there to be some sort of shame involved with being involved in it, with taking the anti-repair path, because that's going to get us somewhere way faster than trying to spell this out legally would. Because one of the things I remember reading in the right to repair bill was making the parts available at a fair and reasonable cost. And me just having a store in New York City where I can tell one person $50 and they think I'm a disgusting ripoff, and another person $300 and they almost want to give me a hug even during COVID because they're so happy. I realized that the term fair and reasonable alone,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you could be litigating for 2 years just on that.
Oh no, yeah. When you have ambiguous terms like that, you're just asking for a world of pain. Yeah, what is fair and reasonable to who, to whose eyes? You're just asking for a world of pain. But
Yeah,
I
I'm not an
think,
attorney, so I have no idea how you would specifically word this type of bill so that it would be something that has no loopholes, that's perfect, that's both fair to us and fair to the manufacturer. Because certain people have said the manufacturer should be forced to stock the parts for a certain period of time. I actually think that that's unfair. The manufacturer should be able to say, we have 1 million of this, first come, first serve, buy it all up. And then someone, let's say like Asset Genie, that has $40 million company in a giant warehouse, buys a bunch and then at wholesale and then retails it to all the small repair shops. It would kind of be unfair to make it so that the company is forced to keep the part for 3 or 5 or 7 years. You should be, but like again, how do you word all these things so that it's specifically fair to everybody? When you try to, it's difficult to create a law or one bill that covers all of this stuff, which is why I really want to focus on getting people to understand why this is an issue, trying to get as many people to find it fun and useful as possible, so that when they're in a position to where they could potentially be an asshole, they remember what we talked about here and like, huh, I don't want to be a part of that. Let's just not be assholes, and then the law wouldn't be needed. But the right to repair bill, at least the one that we were arguing for in 2015 through 17, was almost a copy and paste of, I think, Massachusetts's 2012 bill for automotive.
yeah, that's really really cool. And you got to start somewhere with some of these things and trying to answer all the questions. That's what lawyers are for asking all the questions and trying to figure out what the answers are, because it's so much stuff to think about. But let's switch to talking about the cultural side, because one thing I believe in very strongly is First Amendment right of advocacy. I believe in the right to people to say what they want, and I think that extends even to social media. And I've become a little bit disquieted with how much power some of the social media companies have, because they're dealing with so much traffic. But that's another issue for another day. But like in the issue of advocacy, like I have zero problem with you saying what you think about Apple or what you think about any other company and telling people, here's things to consider. That's what it's for. So what companies do you think are doing, and also to the extent that the consumer is making decisions along those lines, then market pressure will ultimately win, because what the consumer wants will be what the consumer gets, right? If they make the decision to buy from companies that make their schematics available and make parts available, those companies will win. So it's up to the customer to decide what they want is important. So what companies do you think are doing a particularly good job along these lines that are in your space?
Not many, probably
Yeah.
none. I'm trying to think of it. Like there are some that are less crappy, but the thing that people I think mistake, and this is probably because I was bad at my general. This is my fault for being bad at PR and advocacy in general. Is because I talk about the faults in Apple products, people assume that I'm saying that Apple's the only one that is bad with this. I speak about Apple products because that's what I know. I have a shop that repairs nothing but Apple products, so I can specifically point out, here's the year that this became less repairable and why. Here's a decision that was made that I think was an asshole decision. I can speak with authority there, whereas I can't on other products. But that doesn't mean if I go to Dell, they're going to give me a schematic for an XPS 9550. Most other companies are not going to help you with this either. The thing that usually makes Apple an easy target is that they put out all these stores and claim to care about the customer experience, whereas when you go to Acer or HP, they're making it obvious they don't give a fuck about the customer experience from the get-go. But Apple pretends to care about the customer experience. They are perceived as a top-tier quality brand where nothing breaks, which is like I could go on for days on that. And they're also insanely expensive, so people want to keep them for a long period of time. They hold their value well. An A1278 MacBook Pro from 2012 will actually sell for $200 or $400. Find an average spec PC from 2012 and see how it sells now. So people want to fix them because of how they hold their value, which is why it's that much more offensive to them when they realize the effort that this company that they love has gone through to keep them from doing it. But most other companies are doing the same stuff. Samsung copies Apple on all the bad things they do. None of the good stuff, but a lot of the bad stuff that they do. Most other companies, it's not like LG is going to make it easy for me to work on their products. They do mostly the same stuff that these companies do. And for the most part, consumers don't have a choice if they want to buy a laptop where the company will easily give them a schematic or a diagram for it. It may exist. I just honestly don't know. It's probably going to be some really, really obscure company with some really, really obscure old hardware that's not up to date on a regular basis or mass produced. You don't really have a lot of choices.
Yeah, that I can see how that'd be very, very frustrating. And I've used both Android and iOS, and I'm back to iOS these days because I just like the App Store, and I like the environment of it all. And for me personally, I wasn't really able to do anything with Android that made it particularly usable. I just don't like the customization, and I find it more frustrating and crashes more often. But that's my experience, at least. So I kind of like the Apple ecosystem, but that's each consumer can make their own decision. Do you think there are any? Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about European countries. If you think that anyone in Europe is doing work on this domain that you think is interesting.
In Europe, what I had some hope. I saw France put this thing out where products were going to have repairability labels, and then I saw that one of the newer MacBook Pros got a really low score for being accessed to the internal parts, like how to get to them when you open it, but a high score for parts being available. And that I became very sad when I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that video from yours. Yeah, it was nice.
It's the easiest thing. Opening that computer is the easiest. You got 6 screws, you pop it off, bam, everything's there. But good luck finding any of these parts so that you can actually fix it. I don't know if they're allowing the manufacturers to self-report. Kyle at iFixit actually sent me a really long spreadsheet that says specifically how it is they go about rating everything and deciding what is or isn't considered fixable. And I have low hopes that they're going to get it right, but hopefully I'm proven wrong. One of the good things about being a pessimist is if you're proven wrong, then the world is better.
You're happy? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually one good comment in your chat. It said, "Is right to repair mean right to cheat emission systems?" And this is a point that the John Deere person brought up, is that people are trying to get around the emission systems because and that technically you could, if you could hack into all this stuff, you could cheat the emission systems on a tractor. And then people will say the reason that they're trying to do that is because this particular thing breaks all the time. Also, the second problem is, let's say you actually do the repair and you fix the tractor to the point where the emission system is working 100% as it should. It still won't start up again and do its job until the John Deere tech comes in, plugs his little laptop in, and says, "You did it okay." So it's not so much about the ability to cheat emission systems as it is, even if I don't want to cheat the emission system, do I still want to have to pay that guy to come out here to pat me on the head and say, "Oh, good, you did a good job, Sonny." And like, you meet your average farmer in Nebraska or Kansas, and like the idea that at a 65-year-old person that's been working his land for 40 or 50 years with his father has to wait for some young snot-nosed kid with his laptop to come out to double check his work. That's not something that's ever going to fly. But it's a good question, because technically you could go in and cheat you could cheat the emission systems. You could do all sorts of shit. I'm sure you could do what that guy did in Grande, Colorado, and make a tractor that blows through the whole town or whatever. People can. If you give people freedom, they can do good things or they can do bad things with it.
Yeah, that's right.
But the case
and people
is that
probably should have the right to do bad things. They should with their own equipment. Like if you had an old school tractor and you wanted to supercharge it or something, I mean, go nuts, right?
Without right to repair, someone turned a tractor into a tank in 2004 and destroyed town hall and destroyed his neighbor's concrete shop because he pissed him off. So I mean, it's just saying. There's a lot of stuff you can do without right
super
to repair
illegal. Super illegal.
That was a bulldozer though, not a tractor. But
yeah, it's the same. Yeah, amazingly, it's not okay to just bulldoze down someone else's property. That might be illegal. These
not
are
a nice thing to do.
These are pro tips from the lawyers. It's not good to take a bulldozer and bulldoze someone else's stuff without asking first. Yeah, but people can be jerks or assholes or whatever else too. Yeah, so it's all very, very frustrating. So what does the average consumer look like to you, or what is the range of things that people come to you for?
Mostly liquid damage. We've really like, honed in on the on liquid damage because it was a niche that wasn't really being serviced as much before. It's liquid damage and cracked screens. The cracked screen stuff, it's getting more and more difficult to get screens, and they're becoming more and more expensive. So there's not really as much point. So, but with liquid damage, particularly since the data is now soldered onto the board, there even if you don't want the computer to work again, even if it's not worth the repair, you still may want your data on it. So a lot of it is data recovery and liquid damage. And most consumers have no idea that this is an issue until they show up, which is why I'm really focusing on the cultural part more than the legal part. Because most people, even if there was a choice for a company that makes the product easily repairable, which to my knowledge right now there isn't, the consumers are not really even aware this is a problem. So when they show up at the manufacturer and the manufacturer doesn't even offer them a new one's 2000, fixing it is 700, when it's just no, just get a new one, they're surprised by that. They don't know that that's a thing. And then when they show up here and I say I would love to fix this machine, but you're going to have to come back in 2 years when I can find this chip that the manufacturer has told their component vendors not to sell to me, they're absolutely taken aback. So most consumers don't really know that this is a problem or an issue until they have the problem or issue, and then they know, but by then it's too late. So
Yeah,
that's why I want to focus on people understanding that this is an issue. Because even 12 years in, most people who show up here, when I tell them, I'd love to fix your device, it has one bad chip, I can't buy it. They have no, they aren't aware of this as an issue.
yeah. I guess people. I mean, even I wouldn't necessarily think about it. Just when I'm buying stuff, and then if it breaks, what am I going to be able to do about it? So, yeah, it probably doesn't occur to most people how they will get things fixed. And then, for that matter, people don't get things fixed just as much as they used to. Repair shops in general are, not doing as well as they might have in the past. People just tend to replace things because the way we do consumerism in the United States. So, yay, consumerism, I guess.
Some things, some repair shops are doing worse and some are doing better. Like as things get more difficult to repair, I see that as an opportunity because now instead of having 600 competitors, now now I have 30. Now when they're unwilling to, let's say they're willing to solder a QFM but not a BGA, it's like okay, I went from having 30 competitors to having like 6. So I found there was an opportunity there. But also as everything became more and more integrated, that means that instead of like if you have a motherboard where the CPU, the RAM, and the drive are and the graphics card are all separate, each one of those components is not necessarily worth fixing at component level. If you combine them all into one board, now that one board is $1,600, now maybe worth fixing at component level. So I found that as things became more integrated and more difficult to repair, it became more of an opportunity to work on it. And that's one thing that I also want to differentiate from. Right to repair is not telling the manufacturer you need to have every single component needs to have a slot on it or a card bus or whatever, like it's 1960 and we're setting up a UNIVAC. I'm not saying that you need to design the product completely differently. It's kind of it's trying to mandate by law, don't be an asshole. So I'm not saying you can't solder the RAM to the board, but don't tell Henix, by the way, you know how all your other RAM is sellable for all your other stuff? Don't sell this chip to anybody if they come asking for it, even though it's just a standard RAM chip. That's the kind of thing that we would be trying to legislate, not you need to design your product so that a 6-year-old can repair it by having everything be modular.
Yeah. So, is there anyone who's trying to make other versions of the chip? Because presumably the chip can be whatever the chip is doing technically could be done by somebody else.
I reached out to someone about creating something similar to the ISO 9240, and every single place that I spoke to about reverse engineering that and trying to make one, the moment they figured out what product it goes into, they just said, nope, not touching that. And like one of them was very close to going ahead with it, and then they figured out, they Googled it and they saw what it went to, and they said, nah.
They don't
They
want
all,
to.
so I never even got a chance to get that far.
Well, reverse engineering is legal, so but I guess they don't want to have the fight with Google, with Apple's lawyers who have more money. So,
That seemed to be the thing. Like they immediately went from being very open to speaking with me to I'm not even taking your phone call or your Skype message. Like right after it would be a complete turnaround. It's
yeah,
almost like when there'd be a woman I have a crush on and I would ask her out and she'd say yes and then she'd Google me And then like,
Oh,
it'd be that moment.
oh no. Oh,
It'd be
why would
like,
the women love you when they Google you,
I could
Louis? You're a
always
great
tell when
guy.
that's happened to me twice. But like it would be like that exact moment
What are
happening,
they
but the
reading
hardware
that they
version.
don't like, man? You have a great bio.
I don't know. Maybe
You
they
have
read
your own
some posts on
store.
Reddit
I mean, your
r
own
slash Apple.
store that work. You're successful. You have a shop in New York. I mean, that's got to be hard to maintain. I've seen some of your videos where you're hunting around for real estate. Sounds like super fun times based on your videos. So it's like, why wouldn't they love you, man? They just can't handle how awesome you are.
I
That's what's
prefer
going
your
on.
interpretation.
Yeah, that must be what it is.
It's much more
Um,
flattering than the truth.
yeah, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, it's it'll be. I was thinking it would be like me calling a paper company and be like, yeah, can you make me a custom run of 75% linen and 25% cotton? That's going to get uncomfortable questions rapidly because that's what money's made out of. So, anyways, they're trying to make a joke. Yeah, Secret Service will get interested in that one. Uh, anyways, uh, so yeah, what is next for you? Do you think in terms of your company and where you're developing? First of all, have found a space? How did that turn out? And
I found it, and then right after I found a space in an expensive area in the center of New York City went to shit. So yeah. So
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 you
talking
have a
business kind of did this.
lease for expensive property, and it's not working out that great, huh?
I did pay a very, very good attorney to negotiate my lease. So if the worst case scenario does occur and I do leave, well, that was $3,000 to $5,000 well spent. I'll leave it at that.
There you go.
Because someone from the building ran in and was aggravated. And when business did this, I wasn't paying full rent. I was paying like uh, something fair. I think I gave him like $6,000 or $8,000 instead of 12 when business did this. And one of the people said, we need to see your books. I want to see your books right now. I'm sure it's in the lease that we get to see. But I just had that smile, and it's like, man, it sounds like my attorney read this lease and yours did. But
Yeah.
I have an exception. I had an exceptional attorney go through my lease, and she is excellent at what she does. Their name was Jody Markman Law, a very good attorney. And if anybody in New York City needs a real estate attorney right now, she's amazing. But yeah, so business like mail-in did this and then leveled out, and walk-in just went off a cliff entirely. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be going, but yeah, I did. I finally made a move into a better store because I wanted to set up a real business. I didn't want to be stuck in a closet anymore. And the moment I decided, let me set up a real business and try to put it together and make the place look decent and be more professional, was the point at which the city completely collapsed. So like, the school down the block, that a bunch of customers would have come from FIT. That's been closed for a year. All the offices in the area are closed and no one's there. So it's like, it doesn't make financial sense to be in this area anymore. So my focus is on, getting as much of the older business out of here as possible so that I can be agile for the future. Like, do I stay here? Do I go to a smaller space in New York? Do I leave the city entirely? I really don't know, but I definitely am going to be exploring my options this year.
Well, Austin's nice. I just have to say that if you're looking for a new
Your
hub,
mayor sounds like an asshole.
he's a jackass. But your mayor's also a jackass. So it'll be like being at home again.
I don't want to leave one for another, though. That's the problem. But I'm fully aware of the experience of being here, but it still seems like it's a world better than here. It seems like it's more sane.
Yeah, it is. And it's warmer, and we got one day of snow, and the entire city freaked out. It was nice. Everyone made snowman for the one day. That was interesting. It doesn't snow a lot here. That's why I could never live in New York City. Also, because there's just too many people. Every time I've been in New York City, well, this is of course before COVID, but I always felt claustrophobic outdoors because like you get these tall buildings, right? They're just surrounding you, and you get so many people. It's like you just feel like you're in a small space, even
It's
though
not
you're in the
that.
middle of the
It's more
city.
so the fact that you need to be a multimillionaire to be middle class in the city.
Yeah, that too.
People are probably going to say I'm being my expectations are too high. Whatever. When I first moved out from my parents, I was living in a house that was filled with termites. And the landlord would tell me, what are you, Pinocchio? They're not after you. I've lived in the absolute dumps before, but like once you get to a point where you want a little bit of space, maybe you want to actually have a backyard or have an apartment that's not really tiny, be able to actually live in some place where if you play music, people are not going to bang on the wall. You need a lot of money. Like to buy a house here that even looks semi-middle class, you're probably going to wind up spending $1.5 million. You could find some places that are like dumps and falling apart or whatever, super tiny or look like they were put together 150 years ago and never maintained for $700,000 or so. But you need to be a multimillionaire to feel like you're middle class here. And then you can go to almost any other part of America and spend a few $100,000 and feel like a king. And that's the thing that's the most bothersome about New York, is that everything here is so expensive. It's a little bubble outside of the rest of the country. There's a couple of bubbles. I'm sure San Francisco is similar, where everything is so insanely expensive, and that you get this idea that no matter how much money you make, you're a serf.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was watching an old episode of Worth It I think it's a BuzzFeed series where they look at different things at different prices, and they were looking at 3 different apartments in Manhattan for 3 different prices, and their lowest price is also what I'm paying for my apartment here in Austin, but they had considerably less space. I think they had half as much space as I did, but they had it by themselves for what I'm spending here, so that was nice. But it was in Brooklyn, so it wasn't in Manhattan, but they had an apartment for, I think it was $1,700, and yeah, so they had a 400 square foot apartment and a little backyard, but they had to themselves, so that was nice. But I was like, yeah, for $1,700, I'm getting twice that space in Austin, and it's much nicer here. So yeah, and it's a lot cheaper than DC too. In DC for this apartment, I would have been paying $2,300, $2,400. So it's quite a lot cheaper than DC proper too. So
Austin seems to be starting to get expensive.
Yeah, it is getting a little bit expensive. We just crossed 1 million people here, so we're one of the 1 million plus cities, so we got that going for us. But it's beautiful, lots of music here and good barbecue.
How long until Austin has a Cuomo or Gavin Newsom like governor?
Well, yeah, I don't see that happening anytime in the near future.
I could hear a lot of people in Texas's blood pressure just went up as I said that.
No, we could do without that. We've got the mayor, and he's already enough of that, and that's fine. He wanted to put in tougher restrictions, and our governor said nope. And I'm like, yay! We don't have to do that. We can actually be sane. And the one thing that makes trying to get to live music is annoying, because I live right in the middle of the music district. None of the places near me are playing anything. Although Dave Chappelle's playing across the street from me, so I got that going for me. He's been here for like a month, so I can actually like hang up my balcony and like listen to a set. It's nice.
What do you think should be, if a right to repair bill were to be proposed, what would be your concerns so that it is fair to the companies, but also not something that could be easily weaseled out of for consumers?
All right. Well, from a patent law perspective, the first thing that comes to mind is to the extent that they have any sort of proprietary patentable like hardware on their board. So if they have a chip that's patented because it has some sort of unique whatever, that's my first concern, because right to repair, you have to worry about that, because the person who has that patent has the exclusive rights to it. So now you'd be in the position where Apple, for example, would be forced to manufacture that product for whatever period of time, and you couldn't get it from anyone else. So presumably they could charge whatever they want. So that would be my first concern, is how does that intersect with patent law? The second thing that I'd be concerned about is the possibilities of it harming the brand, which, as I think you made a very excellent rebuttal to in your earlier comment on it, that people can repair all kinds of stuff and people don't hold it against the brand, so maybe it's not as much a problem as I had alluded to. But you just really have to define exactly what we're talking about. What exactly do they have to provide to the consumer, under what terms? So do they have to provide a schematic? Do they have to provide hardware? I know you said like you don't want source code, but presumably someone else might want to. Someone could make the argument that reverse engineering source code is the same as like reverse engineering the hardware of a circuit board. So maybe they're in the same domain, or maybe not, because one is patent because it's hardware and one's more copyright because of software. But yeah, just trying to figure out what they have to do under what terms, what are the prices that they can charge, who's protected by this, who's not. Maybe you want to exempt certain people or for something because it's maybe a manufacturer wants to do, like you think about car manufacturers, sometimes they make these like special cars. We're only going to make 77 of this car in our entire run, because we can charge $3 million for them a piece. So like, what would be the right to repair equivalent of that, and what parts would they have to make available, and for how long? How many do they have to keep in stock? and so
This is the
forth and so
problem, as
on.
I said before, with having when you get rid of the big overarching law, that you wind up with a tyranny of millions of small ones. Like if you when you get rid of allow people to work on their devices and don't be an asshole, now you wind up with a million little rules and subsections that explain how all of this works. And it's like I could easily see the legal side of this, even if it actually was passed, going back and forth in court for 10 or 30 years and wasting a bunch of people's time, which I really
Yeah,
would want to have happen.
no, you want to avoid ambiguous terms as much as possible, like good and fair dealing, which is a contract law principle, and they've been fighting about that since the beginning of time. So you want to try to avoid open language like that and look for more concrete language. So how many years, what kind of parts, what kind of quantity, what kind of pricing. Try to make things as concrete as possible. So it takes away ambiguity and prevents people from fighting about it. Because Apple, if you make things ambiguous, Apple is just going to do what they keep doing, and they'll use their lawyers to fight every inch because it'll still be cheaper for them to do so. It would be cheaper for them. So you got to think about that kind of stuff. But that's kind of what I think about that. It's just a lot of issues to look into, and yeah, just got to try to spell out everything and try to think of all the possibilities. And I liked what you were doing before, like looking to what other states are doing, because it's always a good place to start. And then you can look to see what's succeeding or what's not and make tweaks to the proposal accordingly. But you're more an expert in this domain than I am. So I wouldn't know exactly what to do. I'd have to sit down and really study the issues for what to do specifically.
I
But I
don't
can at
know a
least,
thing about the law, the legal process of it. I mean, I've met with the lobbyist, Bruce Geiger, that was responsible for doing some of the drafting of the bill. And he understands legislation and law. I don't know a thing about that. I can just say, here is the problem. And as a technician, here's my but I don't understand the legal aspect of it at all. I just want to make sure I don't come off as someone who even pretends that he understands what patent and copyright and IP law are all about.
yeah, that's cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and explaining your perspective on right to repair, because it's something that I've thought about a little bit, but obviously not as much as you. And as a consumer, I mean, I built my own PC, so I'd like the ability to, make stuff and not have to depend on someone if I don't have to, or at least make the choice one way or another. So I really thank you. I want to thank you for coming on and explaining your perspective. So if there's
Thanks
anything
for
else
having
you
me.
want to say, you want to give a plug for something or mention your channel or anything, I'm happy to give you some space before we sign off.
No, it was just fun having the opportunity to use our mayors as pinatas for about half an hour. I enjoyed it. So,
Excellent. Well, in that case, I'll thank my guest, Louis Rossman. His channel will be left in the description below. I'll go in and edit it in so that you can find his channel. I think it's been mentioned in the stream a couple times, and go check out his channel. He has a lot of fun channels. I
all right, you have a good day.
particularly like the ones where he's like going on about New York. I've enjoyed your hunting for real estate series and your biking and look at this insanity series. That's been a lot of fun, just poking at the insanity of reality that we got. That's been fun.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna head off, guys. It's been a pleasure. See you later. Cheers and goodbye.